Okay, welcome back everyone for the final session of GoodFruit Festival Live 2020. I'm so excited and blessed for the experience and hoping you've got something out of it. We wanted to sort of end this festival with some practical tips on, how you can take your idea to the next step. Whether you're working on something, whether you've launched something, how do you take it to scale? And so we've got Jason Flegel here. Jason is the founder of international blogging platform Converge, and he's the founder of a consulting group that sort of consults different brands on marketing and how they can grow their businesses. So we're really excited to have Jason here with us. This conversation or talk is going to be about, you've got a great idea, what next, and 9 effective ways to develop that. So Jason, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anthony. I am honored. I'm privileged to be with all of you today. I'm honored to be in the midst of all the amazing speakers and conversations that we've had so far. I am going to share a little bit more about my background and why this is relevant, but a lot of the conversations that we've already heard, I was just talking with Anthony backstage, and a lot of what we've talked about has been incredible information on how do you think through these conversations, these issues that we might be dealing with in the world today and in the culture and even locally. I want to talk about now, hey, you've got an idea, you might have an organization. Elizabeth was talking about, hey, you might have a book. But once you have an idea or something more than idea, an organization, a business, what do you do? So I'm going to walk through a lot of what I consider tactical information. What can you do what are some of the applications you can apply to that idea, your brand, the organization, business, to really get it developed, share it effectively, and get the adoption that you want. So let's go ahead and walk through. Again, here's the quick outline. I'm going to walk through a little bit more about my background, why that's relevant, and then we'll walk through the 3 steps and break down each of those 3 into other micro action items that you can take immediately from this conversation. So a little bit more about me, as Anthony just gave a great introduction. I've got a background in scientific research, so I actually have my my degree from college at Mount Vernon Nazarene University in Ohio in the States. I currently live with my family down in Florida in the United States. Love the lifestyle with all the sunshine down there. But I felt a call in my life. God really moved my life in a different direction. I was planning on going to become a physician. I was accepted into medical school and dental school. But at the time, I got involved while I was in college to work with some conservative businesses, organizations, some really world-renowned authors. One of them being Kelly Kohlberg, the founder of the Veritas Forum. She's also the author of Finding God at Harvard, and then Finding God Beyond Harvard. We connected, and from there, God opened a lot of pathways to start to do consulting work. So really, what that means at the end of the day is I work with organizations to help them get from where they are to where they want to go. So at the core of that, I've done that for a lot of different organizations, worked in digital marketing, taught myself computer programming. So I've worked for a few years as a software engineer. And then I also manage a lot of basically worldwide teams now. So I work with a few different companies, one of them being Motava in Silicon Valley. It's one of the best SEO agencies in the region there. We work with worldwide companies there at a larger level, really awesome companies that we work with. And then personally, with my Catalyst brand group, I work with a lot of different organizations, a lot of Christian organizations and businesses. And then I also work with a lot of solo entrepreneurs, people just starting out to, again, a lot what we're talking about today is, how do you take where you're at right now and get to the area that you want to go. So, and then I've got my family picture here. I've got a wonderful wife and 2 awesome kids. That was what we dressed up Halloween recently. So great picture. And then a little bit about my experience projects. These are some of the brands I've had the opportunity to work with, just to kind of give you a diverse spectrum. So I've worked with, authors to grow their brands, Dr. Everett Piper, Kelly Kohlberg. I've worked with fashion retail companies like Abercrombie and Fitch. I was a writer, ghostwriter for John Maxwell, Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. So, pretty much every industry I've had the opportunity to really add value, come alongside that individual or that business and guide them to, that end destination that they want to get to. So then I'll unpack a little bit of these in terms of using as examples as we go through the presentation here. So I want to ask a question. I've got, some brands up here on the screen. What do these companies have in common? When you look at these images, what comes to mind? Isn't it interesting how we see the image, we can immediately grasp who they are. And what they have in common is branding. Now, in a lot of circles today, branding, unfortunately, is thought of as the graphic design elements or, the visual identity. But really, branding is the ethos of that idea, whether it's, information, it's a product, or it's a service. It's the core of what that idea is. So what idea story do you have? I loved when Babette, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, was talking yesterday. The universe, she gave that quote, the universe is made of stories, not atoms. I think Annika in one of the conversations was talking about, the idea of that storytelling with the branding is so important. So 100% of ideas fail to make an impact without the right brand, story, and the right system in place. And that's my goal here, is to give you guys the right idea of how do you develop your brand, how do you develop that story, and then how do you create that system. So let's go ahead and unpack that a little bit. So getting into the first stage here with developing, I always go back to the basics. People think that building a company is really difficult, which it is in terms of doing the work. But when you break it down to its simplest level, it's just starting by asking yourself questions. So, you've got a new ministry, a new book, something that you want to develop. How do you determine if your idea is valuable and attractive, and how do you connect it with the right people? Simply start to ask yourself those questions, and then determine what are the people, who are the people that you're trying to serve. I think Elizabeth was talking about building a persona. So you want to think about building a persona around the person or the group of people that you're trying to serve. Understand their pains, their problems, their fears, and then think about what the ideal solution and result that those people want, their roadblocks, their obstacles, and then how does your idea, your business, your organization, whatever it is that you have, how does it solve the roadblock, those obstacles, give them the solution that ultimately helps them overcome their pains, their problems, and their fears. So a brand, in my opinion, I've given this at a lot of different talks. Forbes talked about it, where 8 out of 10 businesses fail because of a number of different reasons. They listed it, but in my opinion, those are just symptoms. It's not the underlying disease of problems that happen within an organization. It comes down to these 3 main areas are every piece of an idea, a business, an organization. And that's brand story. So who you are, who your team is, why you do what you do, your mission, vision, values. Second is brand position. That's what you do and how you do it, how your solution solves the greatest challenge of your ideal customer, your ideal person you're trying to serve. And then brand journey. What's that experience process that you move a potential customer, a potential person you're trying to serve, to become a return customer or a fan of that organization, that idea that you're trying to build. And I love this quote in the corner here. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Those 3 pieces right there, if you think about your brand from those three main pieces, and think of it like the spokes of a wheel. If one of those spokes are out of alignment, your wheel's not going to be able to turn. So you want to have all 3 of these in alignment so you can use that wheel to get from where you are to the end destination that you're trying to get to. If you take away an important piece, an important slide from this conversation, this is definitely the most important one. We're going to walk through a little bit of the applications here. So once you start to ask yourself those questions, again, I encourage you to get out like a journal, piece of paper, start writing that down, brainstorming, thinking about it. Sarah just talked about using your imagination. This is a great opportunity to do that. So in the development process, here's 3 things you want to think about. So you want to understand and identify the buyer or that end user that you're trying to connect with. You want to create a persona. So that's demographic information, that's, whatever information that's relevant that can help you better connect with them, that information needs to be determined, needs to be defined. So, and then after that, you want to identify and define the particular segment. So, you have your particular person, but now where do they hang out? Where, especially now with the pandemic, everyone is online more. So what are some of those online communities that people are hanging out? And what are they searching for? Are they on Instagram? Are they on Facebook? Are they on YouTube more? Things like that. And then you want to create an offer. So something that is, probably a free piece of information. And that goes along with the second stage here. And that's after you define your brand and you create what's called bait. I'm sure you guys have gone to a website. You get there, there's like a pop-up that comes in and it's like, hey, get these free tips, if you just provide us with your email address, things like that. But you want to think about what is something that I can create that's usually information, and I can deliver that to the end user in exchange for their contact information. I can start to build that relationship with them. So, and along with this, again, you want to make sure it's that ideal introductory piece. And then the third stage is after they download that, they provided the information, usually an automated email. There's a bunch of tools out there, MailChimp, ConvertKit, Constant Contact that do this, but you can set up an automated email to be sent back to them with a download link, usually like a PDF document in a Google Drive that people can open up and download. So you deliver that valuable piece of information in exchange for their contact info. So then from there, if we look at this visually, the market customer pyramid on the left side, this goes back down to the segmentation. So, what are those pieces of valuable information that you can deliver to the ideal user, the ideal customer? And then on the right side, the value ladder. Okay, you see what I just mentioned there on the bait on that first stair step piece. What are the next pieces that you're going to deliver to them that helps them, again, overcome their common challenges and gets them to the ideal situation, the ideal place that they want to get to? So that's really important to diagram, because you can't really build out some of the next pieces that we're going to talk about without clearly defining these items here. Okay, now with share. So how do you effectively share your idea after you've developed it in a way that gets people to take action? So first is what I like to call the Godfather offer strategy. Sabri Subi in Australia, he wrote a book called Sell Like Crazy. Highly recommend if you guys are building like a for-profit business or even a nonprofit. I think the principles definitely still apply. But he talks about this Godfather offer strategy, and it's basically making people an offer they can't refuse. So after you've defined, your free offer, your free information you're giving to people, you need to start thinking about how are you going to test out a offer that people might pay for, they might donate money, whatever that is. It needs to be some kind of incentive that gets people to take action. So you want to think about what are you selling or you're offering, how much does it cost, what are the donation levels if you're doing a nonprofit, who will take action, and then how do they claim or buy it. And then thinking about traffic, we live in a digital world. We've got to be able to share it. So, think about your digital platform, your website, making SEO improvements, and then testing out some different ways to bring traffic to the site. Are you more comfortable with doing social media? Okay, do some regular posts. Again, try to connect with your ideal end user or the customer you're trying to connect with. Test that out. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, social media. And then also, there's guest blogging opportunities. So writing online, one of my best strategies to bring in new business, connect with new people, is I regularly am a guest on podcasts. I write articles that are published in, large online publications, some of the largest in the world. And it's literally just free information I'm offering to people in exchange for, hey, if you want more information, here's some kind of call to action. I usually offer a downloadable piece of information that they can take action, go download it right away. And I'm constantly testing things out like that. So from there, now you have the opportunity to create what's called the magic lantern technique. And there's a lot of ways to define this. People say it's a funnel, a sales funnel. It's literally just a process where you move people from first interaction to end destination that they want to get to. And then, what does that continuing relationship look like with them? So it's focused on, building that relationship and constantly providing exceptional value to them. So here's a diagram that kind of just illustrates that. So on the left-hand side, before they're even aware of you, they're going to want and are looking for some kind of solution to the problem that they have. So step one, you might be, creating a piece of information they can download. So let me use an example. Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. He's a worldwide investor. He invests in companies all around the world. He's constantly looking for new startups to invest in. So what we created with him was, hey, get 10 free steps to the perfect pitch when you go to pitch venture capitalists. So our step one was we created that to them. The step two that was free, we dripped in an email sequence. So they got another email a few days later that said, thank you so much for downloading my 10 free steps to the perfect pitch. Here is a free video series on how to build your startup for success. So again, it's constantly delivering value to them. A few days later, the next one was a free access to one of Kevin's ebooks. So the whole idea is define what pieces of value you're delivering to that end user, that end customer. If you're selling a book, what are those snippets that you can provide from that book to them? And then by the end of it, they move from being super skeptical all the way to you've developed a high level of trust with them because you've constantly delivered value to them. And usually at this point, if you're doing this for profit, it makes sense to become a paying customer. So hop on a sales call. If you're talking about donation, they donated money. How can they become more involved in the organization? If you're an author, how can they be more involved in your brand, maybe offering an affiliate opportunity? But I want to give you guys a visual representation of what this means. It's a step-by-step process that you're thinking about when you've got your idea, a process that helps them become a raving fan. This is proven all around the world. I've used it for hundreds of businesses, nonprofits that I've used, and a lot of authors that I've worked with as well. So with adoption, I want to point your attention to the bottom right corner. So people don't buy products or services or information, they buy solutions. So communicating from that perspective is really important. I think Sarah mentioned it's not about you. The businesses, organizations that focus on themselves and communicating from that are always going to fail. It needs to be on the end user that you're trying to serve. So how do you get adoption and retain people that are interested in your idea or your offer? And this comes down to just learning how to work with people, connect with them, gather information, have conversations with them, ask the why questions. When they get on a sales call, when they get on a call to just get to know more about your organization, your book, things like that, that's the time that you can gather really valuable information, make changes to your idea, your brand, and move forward from there. And then after that, once you've had amazing interactions with people, you want to collect those reviews, those experiences. You want to build your online reputation. You want to equip these people with the information that they need to talk about you, talk about, things that they've experienced while working with you, and let them carry your water, so to speak. because that is when people have a great experience with you, they're going to tell people. But it's really, really important to equip them with the right information on, sharing it. If they're excited, they're passionate, they want to share, then equip them with the right information that they can better share it with people. Using digital tools, you want to automate this process for the funnel and then for communication. I mentioned some of the tools out there. ConvertKit's one of my favorites for an email subscriber tool. You can set up a drip sequence. I mentioned Kevin Harrington, what we did with him. We used Infusionsoft because he had a few million email subscribers, but I like to use ConvertKit for smaller email lists, and then people just starting out because they've got a really intuitive, easy to use interface. But at the end of the day, it's just an automation tool that you can use to stay in touch with your audience. You want to build that audience and you want to stay connected with them, constantly delivering value. And then the final step of the adoption is rework and multiply. So you've just gone through, this whole process. You put information out there. You've done social media, potentially, done things with your website, been a guest on shows or different things like that. Look at the analytics. Look at the numbers. What worked? What didn't work? And how can you make some changes to go from there? Make some improvements, rework it, and then test. So important. Constantly learn and then constantly be improving. So again, bringing it back to this diagram, it's as simple as from they are not even aware of you. What are some of the steps of the process that you want to put into place? Again, it's building trust with people. People don't care what you have to say until they know how much you care. That process right there shows that you care. So following this system, just from me personally, the businesses I've worked with, it's generated millions of dollars. I worked with Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. We used the whole process I just described to you at a higher level, more generic level, and we launched the Secrets of Closing the Sale Masterclass. And I'm going to walk through that example here. So we did $2.5 million during launch week. When we launched it, we used the same exact process. We were only able to do it because we used this very step-by-step strategic process. So with Kevin Harrington and the Ziglar Corporation, if you're not familiar with Zig Ziglar in the US, he basically took sales and turned it from a really strong Christian guy, but he turned sales from a non-reputable profession to becoming reputable. It was something that people wanted to do. He is known for saying, to sell is to serve. So really going into using biblical principles to serve people, an incredible man, incredible organization. But we used Zig's entire sales vault of information to create a digital online masterclass, 20 plus hours of content. We had all of this prepared, and we needed to launch it. So we went through that same exact process. The first bait that we gave was a lot of Kevin Harrington's materials, 10 steps to the perfect pitch. We really dived into the persona, understanding the people that we're trying to serve. And we determined 4 main buckets of people that we wanted to go after. And then we created the messaging for the course, just sharing it with people around what they were looking for, what their challenges were, and then the ideal solution to help them solve that challenge. Again, because we went through that process, we were able to connect with them. Some of the testimonials that we got from people were like, it's like you read my mind. Because this process works. It's a clearly defined process. It definitely, generates, it moves the needle, for your idea, for the brand that you're trying to build. So that's a for-profit example. Let me give you Grow Like a Pro. This is not a business. This was just a podcast sharing information. It was about interviewing entrepreneurs, people with awesome ideas, nonprofits all over the world. I started it in Ohio in the States, and 0 audience whatsoever. I created an entire process following what I just shared with you. In less than 1 year, we went from 0 listeners to 2,000 monthly listeners, got featured by iHeartMedia as an up-and-coming podcast, just because we clearly defined who we were trying to serve, created that persona, understood it. So again, going through the brand. And then we went through the share process. Where are people hanging out? How do we connect with them? And then the adoption. Once we connect with them, they listen. What are the free pieces of information that we're going to deliver to them that gets them their foot in the door, our foot in the door, so to speak? And then we build a relationship with them. And then, at that point, we can offer a partnership, we can offer products, we can offer services in order to drive revenue. We worked with nonprofits to raise money for their organization. But at the end of the day, our ROI was more monthly listeners that we were able to get featured by. So super important there. I know that this is a lot of information all at once. Anthony and the GoodFruit team is going to have this talk available after we're finished with the event. So I really encourage you to go back through this. And then I will have my email at the end slide here that I can provide you. I'm gladly willing to share the slides with you as well. But to bring this to a challenge to you, again, are you working on a book? Are you wanting to build a business? Are you wanting to do a nonprofit, a ministry? Whatever it is, I encourage you with this information. I hope you feel like you're able to take that first step, start to make mistakes, learn, improve, and then keep moving forward. I love this quote. This is from Ryan Levesque, the founder of the Ask Method. We worked with him. He's one of the best in terms of psychological neuroscience on how to understand people and how they purchase, how they convert to want to do things. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get it going. And I hope I've equipped you, with a lot of information on how to get going. So, with GoodFruit, when I connected with Anthony, and Anthony, feel free to hop back on here, but, GoodFruit is all about being that catalyst. That's why I called my organization Catalyst Brand Group, because, you add me, you add my team to the mix, we're going to help cause a greater reaction working together than if we are apart. And together, I think one of the biggest things, and Anthony, I think you'd agree here too, is, we are an amazing community that God has brought together. We all have different skill sets. Mine's more in the business consulting, organizational consulting, digital marketing space, using technology to, convey that message. All of the amazing talks we heard, and all of you guys watching, you have different skill sets that God has gifted you with. And as the body of believers, together we can work together to literally change the culture. If you're in the UK, I'm in the States, wherever we're at, we can have a global impact. So I want to ask, what are you building? What's your idea? And then how can God work through you to have that impact? So a lot of tactical information all at once. I'd love to have any, if you guys have any particular questions, I'd be glad to answer them. And then my email's up here along with my personal business site too, if you guys want to check that out. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And Anthony and the GoodFruit team, thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, thank you so much, Jason. Really, really, really powerful stuff. And like he said, bringing the practical part of how we can take those next steps, or even just not just take next steps on ideas, but things that already exist, organizations, books in flight. I guess I sort of had a question. You mentioned obviously these different stages. Is this cycle, of sort of taking your idea to the next step? Is this a cycle that you're constantly working on, for example, or is this something that should be done for like a set period of time, like say, maybe 3 months or 6 months? How would you advise people who are, okay, I'm going to put this in place? How long should they be doing this stuff?
Yeah, so I'll use the analogy of building a house. So and I think, Proverbs talks about this as well. Before you build your house, you want to lay your foundation. So this process, you want to think about it as, if you're doing it for the first time, that's foundational. But, as you go along at your house, as we all know, there's things that need to be improved upon. So I think of it like that. It's foundational when you first do it, but once you build it and lay that down, you then have the opportunity to come back in and, make improvements to particular areas. So, with the development, the sharing, the adoption, there might be times where you talk with someone, or you have like a major issue that happened with the sales process. Well, Now go back and, you have that foundation, but now you can make changes to it and make improvements moving forward.
Right. I love that. So it's really about, like iterating and keeping things going as opposed to,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm wondering as well if there's, if there's even just one common mistake that you see being made for people who are trying to launch or grow their businesses or projects. What's the one thing that you see that is a common mistake and a common key mistake that will be detrimental to the process of growing something?
Yeah. So there's a few like key indicators when I start to work with an organization, and usually it goes down to a few buckets, like communication, brand, the sales process, or the fulfillment customer service process. So there's a few different things, but the most common thing that I see is I think people jump into trying to do a lot of the like, oh, I'm just going to start putting information out on social media and hope something happens.
Right.
But they didn't go through the process of clearly identifying who they're trying to go after. So that building that persona information and searching for it, researching it is one of the most important things. And I think that's the most common error I see. Because there's, I think Annika might have mentioned it. She probably sees it on a daily basis, but same as me. But it's the process of they're putting out the wrong information to attract the wrong person. So if you clearly identify who you're going after, you have the opportunity to then craft the messaging around the brand, the social media post, blog post, messaging on a website, video content, whatever it is, but then that message is crafted to connect with them at the core. So if you don't connect with them at the core, at the end of the day, you're just making noise. So I think that's one of the most common things. And then, one of the others is people don't, it's the adoption phase. So they start to generate traction. They start to get some growth, but then they totally leave out the idea of fulfillment and service to the people. So they get them in, someone might have downloaded information. They might have downloaded something to purchase a book or, so they're in the database, but then nothing else happens after that. There's no emails, there's no conversations that happen. And, for me, as that outsider's perspective, it's like, whoa, I did that one thing, but it's like they don't care about me anymore.
Right.
Or for a business, that you bought something or you purchased a service, and you get, a bad experience, you reach out and you just had a horrible support experience with them. They obviously weren't worrying about service. So, thinking about those, I'd say those two are the most common things, but I wanted to give this overall strategy because when you start to have problems, again, as the foundation, you can go back to this and be like, hey, I've got my problem here. Where does this fall into, and how can I address this, to fix it and start moving forward too? So it's not only just for the end person you're trying to serve, it's also for yourself. It's a balance between the two.
Absolutely. And particularly, I love what you said as well, like the foundation of a house, because I know even myself from previous things, you can sometimes skip that part because, that part slows me down. That part is not going to allow us to move fast, right? But actually, like you said, when you start moving along the process, having that part in place allows you to go back and remind yourself.
And when I hear people say, oh, we don't have the time for that, whether they like it or not, they're going to have to make time because it's going to be a massive issue in the future when they have to go back and redo everything. So it's just like, if you build the house the wrong way, you're going to have to go back and redo it because it's not safe, for the inhabitants. So same thing with that. It's not safe for you. It's not safe for the person you're trying to serve, because at the end of the day, if you do it poorly, you're going to do them, an injustice by not serving them the right way.
Absolutely. Jason, thank you so much for sharing this with us and this conversation. If anyone wants to reach out to Jason, you can see his email, jason@jasonflegel.com. We will be circulating any materials that we get from the speakers afterwards as well, that whether it's slides or anything like that. And if you've bought a ticket with the recording, we'll be circulating that as well. So definitely, yes, look out for that. I see a question from Christine, actually. How do you narrow your potential target audience when it initially feels like the answer to that question is everyone?
Yeah,
great question.
So I wanted to. That's one of my favorite questions I get. So if you type in Google Ryan Levesque, the Ask method. So just type in Ask, A-S-K method. Ryan actually gives the book away for free. In exchange, you just pay for shipping. He goes through a process, what's called the deep dive survey. So we use this in the Secrets of Closing the Sale Masterclass. I use it in almost every larger project I do. It's very important for some smaller ones as well. But the deep dive survey walks through like 8 to 10 questions that you can ask your ideal customer, your ideal people that you're trying to serve. And then from there, it walks you through, okay, now you got all this information. How do you segment people into, okay, maybe now we've got 3 or 4 people that we're going to try to target based on all that information that came in. So that book is probably the best, it's good. So I'll give you a little info, but I highly encourage you to check out the book. So from there, it's usually you get all the info, but then you segment it in a spreadsheet. And then you use color coordination to basically segment them into those different areas that they're trying to go at. So it's defined by, what's their problem? What solution are they looking for? If you create the segments based on that, you usually can have just a handful. So with Secrets of Closing the Sale Masterclass, it was sales professionals. It was entrepreneurs just starting out looking for funding. It was entrepreneurs who were at a later stage in their company looking for more capital. And then the other one was just people trying to sell like an online course. So we gathered all that information, but we went through the answers. We looked at all the demographics, the open-ended questions, looked at their vocabulary words too, because you have that opportunity to use the words that they're using in your messaging as well. But that's probably how I would start. So ask around. If you've already got an online community, I would highly recommend looking at the deep dive survey from Ryan. Look at the types of questions he asks. Send those questions based on your brand or your idea to people you trust, and just test it out at a smaller level first and see what kind of answers you get back. And then if you can kind of see the themes in the answers that people are providing to you, then oh, let me try to put this out there for more people to submit. I think that's probably one of the best ways to go about it.
Perfect. I just posted the link in there as well to the askmethod.com. So sure. Christine, hopefully that helps. We have come to the end of the festival 2020. Ryan, thank you so much for your oh, sorry, I'm just getting I think Ryan is sending a question. I've got a text message. No. Okay. Oh, yeah. No worries, Christine. You're welcome. Jason, thank you so much for sort of sharing with us. We haven't got any questions left, but I think we'll end it here.
Awesome.
If anyone again wants the slides, you can reach out to Jason. We'll be sharing his details again. If you haven't got it down, feel free to email us at team@goodfruit.co. So that's goodfruit.co. If you want any information or materials from the event, the recordings will be available for those who have purchased that. So definitely, feel free to look out for that in the coming days. We are thinking, the talks are over, but what we might do in the next sort of probably up until 7 p.m., so the next 20 minutes, is we might open up the networking just so people can connect with each other. The feedback form that we've tagged in stage and event, if you could please give us your feedback. We'd love to hear how this event can be improved, who you think should be at this event in the future. If you want to get involved, we'd love to hear from you. And follow us on social. So it's @_GDFRT, I believe. And we'd love to keep in contact. Or you can also join us, join the newsletter, which is goodfruit.substack. goodfruit.substack.com. So goodfruit.substack.com. But thank you again. It was a pleasure to have you guys and do this with you, see all your questions, and hopefully you got a lot of value. Take care.